Hey guys, what's up? We are back. My name is MJ Clark. This is the Re-Viewpoint, and today we are reviewing Marvel's Black Widow. Black Widow was directed by Kate Shortland and stars Scarlett Johansson, Elizabeth Pugh, David Harbour, and Rachel Weisz. This movie arguably should have come out several years ago, about 4 to 5 years ago, honestly, after Captain America 3 Civil War, which is exactly where this movie leads off from, when we find Natasha Romanoff on the run after Black Panther turned her over to General Ross, basically when she helped Steve and Bucky escape in the airfield. She was about to be hunted by the government for basically breaking the Sokovian Accords. Now, this movie opens up very nicely. We've got a lot going on here. It takes a little bit for the movie to kind of get going, although I will say from the start, I very much like how complex a character Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, is. There's something about her character that you can do a lot with story-wise, but at the same time, I like that they decided to take this kind of let's understand her from a childhood perspective, story point of view better, rather than just having us do a movie where it was from start to finish her, then her in the Red Room, then her being trained as an assassin, her doing assassination things, her being hunted by Hawkeye, and then turning into Avenger after she defects to S.H.I.E.L.D. I actually like this approach better, where it shows us where she was currently at one of the lowest points in her life after she had already become an Avenger. There's a bit more there. Now, some people are going to say that this movie may feel like a filler movie. In fact, I mean, it kind of is, considering that Black Widow herself died in Endgame, sacrificing herself so they could get the Soul Stone to defeat Thanos. But at the same time, we kind of need a movie like this where, you know, this character had a story long overdue that's just being told now that really should have come out a long time ago. And even though it didn't, it's still kind of nice to get it now because no one wanted Natasha to die in Endgame. We love Black Widow, and she's a very intriguing character with a complex background, a very, very complicated past and history. As she said, she's got a lot of red in her ledger, and she joined the Avengers because she wanted to wash it out. This movie has some incredible fight sequences to it. Not too many that really stand out above the rest, if we're being honest. In some ways, this movie feels like they were just getting it done because they needed to use it as a marketing tool to push other projects. And this was kind of the perfect movie to do that, if we're being honest. The character is already passed in the MCU storyline-wise, so why not use her movie to try to help further upcoming projects? And this was really a movie trying to drive Disney Plus, as well as, definitely future movies coming out shortly. There's a lot of Easter eggs in this film. Florence Pugh, who plays Yelena, her sister, essentially, Yelena Belova in this movie, scene stealer. Let's be honest, scene stealer. She is probably the best thing about this movie in a good way. This movie I personally enjoyed quite a bit. I have always liked the Black Widow character. I have always been a fan of her story, an orphaned, assassin. There's something cool about that you can really do a lot of emotional storytelling with, a lot of character development with, and a lot of character work with. And there's a lot of discussion to be had around the psychology that you can kind of play with when you're writing a character as complex as Natasha Romanoff. This movie really does deal with a lot going on with the Red Room, where Black Widow herself was trained and became an assassin, where it's just essentially a bunch of girls who have been thrown out, trafficked and whatever, and being turned into all these assassins who are brainwashed into doing whatever this, agenda could be from, this side of the government, which I'm not going to reveal for plot purposes. It's important if you're a Marvel fan and you know things about, Black Widow's past, especially the things that were somewhat talked about in Avengers 1 between Loki and Black Widow when Loki was in captivity on the helicarrier. This is kind of going off of that conversation they had. This movie's plot is really going back to what happened with that film itself and the things discussed in that first Avengers movie. David Harbour is in this. You'll recognize him from Stranger Things. He plays Red Guardian, or Alexei, essentially the surrogate father to Yelena and Black Widow, and he is also a scene stealer. There's something just very charming about him. He recently played Hellboy, and that didn't really work out. I really like him here. If we could get more Red Guardian in future MCU movies, I would like it. He's hilarious. MCU humor always hits for me. There's something about it. It's a dry humor that's also somewhat self-aware without being over the top. It's always the right level of funny, and this movie does have quite a bit of humor written into the script. It's very enjoyable. Rachel Weisz plays the mother, their surrogate mother in this film. She's one of the first Black Widows. Black Widow, of course, being a title moniker that these assassins take. Natasha Romanoff is not the only Black Widow. She's just seen as essentially the best of the Black Widows. The score in this film is, I like it towards the end of the film, in the climax, in the third act of this film. I think it's very, a mix of Avenger, but also trying to give Black Widow her own sense of identity in this film. Although I will be remiss to say the score for the rest of the film, is somewhat forgettable. We do have a bit of a villain problem in this movie where you don't really know who the villain is and what's going on until almost 40 to 50 minutes into the runtime of this film. And the thing about it is Taskmaster is the villain in this film that you see, I want to say maybe rarely, 3 to 4 times is there really an issue with Taskmaster in this film until we get a much more spoiler reveal later down the line. But the thing about it is he's kind of used as a filler villain, Taskmaster. And even though in the comics he was one of the main villains that, Black Widow dealt with in her comic streamline, this kind of felt like a villain that was here to pass the time in order for us to get to the meat of whom was actually pulling Taskmaster's strings. And there wasn't a lot of characterization of Taskmaster until the end. And the problem with that is the thing about MCU villains is you either have the great ones like Loki, Thanos, Baron Zemo, where they have serious motivation to what they're doing that makes a lot of sense on an emotional level. The audience can resonate and feel like they completely understand this villain's reasoning. With Taskmaster, you understand exactly why someone would do this stuff, but it's not made clear until the last 20 minutes of the movie as to why we should have taken it personally for Natasha, with Natasha to begin with. And they kind of dropped the ball on that one, to be honest. Overall, guys, humor, action, great popcorn movie. I feel like there are some hit and misses here. They could have done, this movie a while ago, and I feel like it would have landed so much more then, because this movie suffers from the fact that because Natasha is already dead in the MCU, there aren't really any consequences in this movie that are going to affect her later, because it doesn't really matter. She's already dead. And I feel like had they made this movie 4 years ago, we would have had a much, much larger connection with this movie heading into Infinity War, where she would have reappeared after Captain America 3. And then an Endgame where her arc originally ends. This would have been a great movie to drive then. We could have honestly done without the Captain Marvel movie and had done a Black Widow movie as the first MCU solo female-led film, which it should have been and deserved to be. And we didn't get that, and that kind of punches this movie in the face a bit. All in all, guys, I did enjoy the movie, those gripes aside, and the shortcomings of this movie just being tardy to the party, unfortunately. But I think you will enjoy it. I do recommend going to see it. There is an after-credit sequence. I do recommend staying. There is not a mid-credit sequence. It is after the full credits. Don't miss it. It's definitely important for upcoming Disney Plus projects, so you do want to see that, guys. My all-over review of Black Widow is going to be a B. Thank you guys for tuning into the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. Go ahead and comment down below for what you'd like me to review next. We will be doing the Loki series/season, hopefully just season finale episode next week. I'm very excited for that. We're also going to be reviewing Shang-Chi in September. We're going to be reviewing a few other movies coming out later this month in July. I'm looking forward to a lot. We've got a lot going on, guys. Thank you very much. You have a great day. Take it easy.